Hello, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today is February 6th, 2023. Tiger painting. Gonna get into some details on the tiger this morning with their left eye. Well, their right eye, the eye that's on our left. So, gonna work on that. That's gonna be one of the first things we start. But before I get into that, I wanna talk about, make sure that I'm on here. Before I get into that, I want to talk about our color picker. So I made some changes yesterday. Actually, I want to get rid of this gamut mask. And because I'm not really using the gamut mask Docker at all, you can't really see anything when it's set to black. So let's set a color up here. So I changed up the color picker that I'm using. Before, I was going back and forth from the advanced color picker to the artistic one. And as you can see, this is the artistic color picker here, which is pretty cool. Has some nice, a lot of nice options to it. It's really nice because I'm used to this as far as, traditional media. This is what you run into. But I was able to kind of adjust what I'm doing with the artistic color picker as well. And I did some research on everything about this artistic color picker. And it has some, or advanced color picker, sorry. It has some amazing options to it that I didn't realize. So if you're in Krita, what you can do is you can click on this little icon here and it will open up the advanced color selector options. I haven't even looked into color hotkeys. So that's something else to look into. There's just a ton of options in here. It's automatically set to this first one, which is a triangle, and then you have a square. You have a square with a different kind of pattern to it of where saturation and value is. Good morning, Thinker. Thanks for showing up. I chose this one on the end because it's closer to what I'm used to as far as, a color wheel, right? So we chose the last one here, and it's hue, saturation, value that we're using. You can use hue, saturation, lightness, or HSI, which I'm not really sure, or HSY, not sure on that. But hue, saturation, value, that's what we'll use. That's what I talk about all the time. So this is what works for me. You could do different things where you can make a custom background. So behind the color wheels, a different gray. I like the gray that's there. You can, the color selector uses different color spaces than the image. Nope, we'll keep it the same. The behavior is interesting. I didn't really change much here, but when you're, let me close this. When you're selecting, there's a preview window that shows up to the left there. So I'm on a blue, and then I go to change that blue, and you can see, how far off you're changing it to, and comparison to black as well. Let's go to like this white, so you can see like a comparison on change. So that's what that does. Now, shade selector. This is cool. I didn't really understand it at first until I did some research on it. What's nice is you can change it. Before, the line height of these lines over here were really small. I could barely even see them or click on them. So you can make them larger, honestly. And I think I'm going to make them like a little bit larger than that. 25, let's see. Yeah, I like that. What's really nice about the shade selector is that you can click on these bars and you won't see it because for some reason it keeps appearing on my other screen and I can't get it moved. So you'll have to check krita.org for what it looks like. But you can put in some values here. And the values that they have, maybe I can take a quick screenshot of this because I think it's important that you see it. Well, it is important that you see it. Aha, I got it. What I'll do is I'll just paste it right into my document. Oh wow, it's tiny. So this is what you'll see when you go into here, you open the shade selector and you tap on one of these areas. Now, what it's doing is it's giving you some options to change how these bars work in some way. And I didn't even bother with, choosing one of these options. These are basically a list of options. They have deltas, they have saturation, value, hue, changes in that way. I just focused on these 3 top adjustments here. I didn't focus on shifting at all. And so the first one I've set to I've set the delta. Honestly, I set the delta. So the first one is for hue, the second one is for saturation, and the other one is for value. So when I tap on this, you can see that the value is 1. So the delta will change. Not sure what that means, but I'll show you in a specific scenario right now. So we just changed the value, and that can go up and down, to negative or positive, and I'll show you the difference between the two. So what you want to do is, let's say we pick out this green color, right? Or maybe, it's an orange. Maybe I go over here on the tiger and I pick out an orange. So this is the orange that I did a selection on. And I want to adjust this hue in value range only, without changing the color itself. So I can make it lighter and I can make it darker without changing the location of that hue. You can also do it up here. So I can go all the way to black, all the way to light, because this is the color picker that I selected. It has that right at the top. Actually, they kind of change independently of one another. So I could have this all the way up, and this selector could take it down slightly, if you see that. So it's got a shift of 1 to it, basically. So I could do the same up here and go all the way to dark. But as you can see, my dot here is not changing. I'm constantly on the same hue, which is really awesome, because I could pick any color and not worry about messing with the other 2 aspects of color, which is saturation and the hue itself. I could just change its value and keep the same hue, the same saturation. And speaking of saturation, the second one, that's what I've done. So when I tap on this one, what it will show in the bottom, you can't see this, I'll just have to give you kind of an example. The delta is 0, 1, and 0. Rather than 0, 0, 1. So it's 0, 1, 0 is what I'm actually seeing. And the second delta is for saturation. And that's what I have this set to. So let's say, I could change the saturation of this by, bringing it down, okay? Closer to the center of the color wheel. But when I do that, there's, I'm actually changing the hue as well. This probably is the most important slider. So if I'm over here in this orange, and I want to keep that orange, but I want the saturation to drop, I can use this slider. So I'm dropping the saturation. As you can tell, the value is getting lighter as well. And I can use this color, this picker up here, to make that change and get closer and closer to gray. I mean, really cool, right? The ability to keep the hue in the same place and change that. And then if you change both of them, you'll see a shift. You'll see that dot change in a different way. So I've changed both the value and the saturation. And so we're going to get a dot change. But let's pick the, a better scenario, or a good scenario. Say maybe the top of this nose, right? And I want to make it a bit lighter, but keep the same hue. I'm going to adjust this right here. It's be the same exact hue, and I'll just make it lighter. Or I could leave that where it's at and just adjust it up here. That would make it lighter, and then I could change this to pull down the saturation as well. A much better way of kind of subtly adjusting your colors in a lot of ways. Actually, I kind of like it. And then, you know, if you want, you just go ahead and you could also move it around in this way. But you have this kind of subtle way of working. Let me go to our tiger color picker. Here's one of the greens that we have. Maybe I want to introduce a hue to it. So it's, instead of it being this kind of warm green, and maybe make it a bit cooler in some way. But that's too intense. I want to keep that same green, but remove the intensity. Well, there you go. It's right there. It's interesting how that is actually moving now. In most of my tests, it did not move. So with saturation, it will move. Value will not move. Nice. Okay, so that is the advanced color selector. I always want to say color picker. I think it sounds better anyways. Anyway, so I'm going to be using that a lot more right now. The artistic color picker is still really good, but I use it mostly for understanding. And honestly, now that I have one that looks similar, I could get an understanding of any color I pick as well. So if I want to get a better understanding of these greens back here, I can right away see the value. You know, the value is pretty dark overall. I can see that the hue, it's a very cool green. And then it's, you know, pretty close to the center. So, you know, not very saturated. Yeah, so we got all aspects of the color sitting there. All right. Now I wanted to show you that because, you know, part of what I'm doing here is teaching about Krita. So I think it's really important. Especially learning this amazing software that is absolutely free. What I want to do is move my reference first so I can get it closer to the tiger. Make sure I'm on the correct layer, which is this one here. Just painting everything on the same layer. Oh, it's kind of cool when you hover over it and you can see what you've done. Drinking a lot of tea this morning. Love my tea. Okay. Let's go back to the David Ravoy brushes, which I enjoy so much. Actually, no, not for the eye, because the last time I was working on the eye, I was using a brush I created, which I like. This is, well, no, it is one of the default brushes. It's kind of like a pencil brush. So that's there and working well. And I'm probably just going to pick from the eye that is there. And oh no, I forgot to turn off Google. Pause syncing. Sorry about that. It's going to buffer for a bit. Put my phone in do not disturb as well, or airplane mode. I'll be quiet for a bit while that's buffering. Sorry. Okay, come on, stream. You can do it. The darn Google backup. It's really good to make sure that I don't lose any of my precious work. That's happened way too often to me in the past. Lost documents. Lost all kinds of work. Okay. Looks like it's back up and working well now. So I'm zoomed pretty far in. Oh, you're not seeing buffering on that end. Okay, maybe I caught it beforehand. So I'm zoomed really far in so that I can really get into the detail of these eyes. I want to get the detail here. And I'm probably going to just repeat what I see there with some small shifts in these colors. Color placement. I don't want to create the exact same eye. But I'm zoomed so far in because I want this to be exact. And, you know, it's the center of interest. It's the, well, the tiger is the center of interest, but this is, you know, the eyes are the windows to the soul, right? We want to show the heart and soul, the perseverance within the tiger, and I think the eyes are the best way to do that. So what are you guys working on right now? Are you working on mostly traditional art or digital art? What do you have fun with every day? What is the subject matter? What are you struggling with? That's always a good question. Oh, on previous episodes, I can't get the chats in YouTube. Wow. You know, that's one thing I never really checked. I'll have to check my stream settings on that. Thanks for letting me know. Not sure if they're there and I just need to turn on something or something I'll have to figure out. I'll make a note of it. I think I want to intensify this color that I have. So I'm going to use exactly what I have. Actually, I'm not going to move that one. I'm going to make it a little bit lighter and then increase the intensity. Best way to learn something is to use it. Let's increase the intensity further and make it lighter than that. Yep, that's what I wanted. Same on this eye. Like what I'm selecting doesn't look like what is actually on the canvas. This is like kind of an olive green. Let's see if I can lighten it up a bit. Bring in some intensity, see what it looks like. Now, it could be the layers, the way they're set up. Thinker says, I'm trying to get into sketching. The biggest challenge I have is coming up with different compositions in my thumbnails. Yeah, different all in caps. It's not easy, definitely. Different compositions. Yeah, I'm thinking about that right now. You know, that's actually really good. That could be a really good question. How can you come up with, just a bunch of different ideas for compositions? What is the best way to do that? The first thing that I think about is, with the wealth of information on the internets, that would be a great place to start utilizing, Google for searching, right? And hopefully, because I've said this, several times, hopefully you're collecting art from artists you love, or maybe even artists you don't love. Maybe you can learn something from them as well, but that's neither here nor there. I would say look at other artists that have some similar subject matter as you, and then see if their compositions can spark some ideas. And then look at artists that have different subject matter than you and see if their art could kind of inspire some ideas. So what's the subject that you're working on? Are you just sketching anything? Is it a particular subject matter? Is this eye too big? The eye's too big. Yeah, that eye's too big. All right. Glad we're in digital. It's going to make things a lot easier. In traditional, this would be a paint over. Heck, in digital, I could even do this. Just take the whole thing out. Okay, is it the same size? Maybe a tiny bit smaller. Yeah, that works. And then bring it back over. And let's make sure it's in the right place by zooming out. It's hard to compare when those boxes are there. I'm gonna actually lean back in my chair and squint down, and that looks pretty good. But I mean, heck, I could always adjust it again. No, the eye needs to go down. Z, no, there. I think the pupil of the eye needs to come down now. Maybe. Control Z. I think the highlight of the eye is on the drawing layer, so I'll have to. Okay, yeah, that's good. That doesn't look wonky at all. That looks good. Yeah, if we were doing this in oil paint, definitely would be hard to adjust. Well, it's a really small space. It would take a bit more time to paint that over, to move it around. But you saw I moved it several times, and that's where it gets a bit hairy, is because usually you move things around several times to get it in the right place. I'm gonna make this pupil just a little bit larger. What I want is some of this intense orange. The color selector is really not doing what I want today. I mean, the selection of color, the color picker itself is actually working really well. I'm liking how that's working. But this selecting everything a bit darker than I think it should be. course, I could be completely wrong on that. Okay, let's find out where... Oh, it is on this layer. It's underneath. I'm going to unlock that layer. Switch to an eraser. And get rid of that. Because we want to put that highlight in a different place. I mean, you know, the one thing that we're doing here is we are changing the light that's on this tiger. But I'm not changing the highlights. Like, I have no idea how that would actually change those reflections in the eyes. So I'm going to keep them similar to the photo. And I think that will be fine. Okay. Oops. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Let's start outlining this eye with our awesome makeup. The tiger makeup. And I was actually thinking about it yesterday, and we have, I have this brush that I was using yesterday that has all this wonderful texture to it. And I'm going to continue using that for a bit, but I think to refine it, I'm going to use a different brush. So this is the brush we're using by David Roy, and it's called Texture Crease Update. Okay. I guess that's what he's calling the, oh, it just popped out of my head. The stamp. You know, this thing, it's a stamp. The shape of the brush. He's calling it a crease. Actually, but before I get into that, I want to go back to this brush. Nope. Is that the wrong one? I need to get rid of that other brush because it's confusing me because they look the same. So to stay within these details, and I'm just going to be selecting from the colors on the other side, which this selector is really annoying me. It's not selecting very well. Where is my selector? You can choose the selection tool or the sample color tool, where they call it. The radius is 4. Let's change the radius to 2. So it only does like 2 pixels. Blend. Blending controls the percentage of color that is sampled and mixed with your current brush color. A full blending value samples colors completely ignoring your brush color. Interesting. So if I change this to 0 and I select like it's not selecting anything at all. Okay, let me put it to 50. Okay, black to this. Yeah. Oh, wow. It does take into account. But if I do 100%, I can go from black to the yellow. Okay. And it'll select a bit better. Oh, this is cool. You could you could say for it to automatically add to palette. Sample all visible layers. Yes. Update color. Yes. Show colors as percentages. No, that's okay. So this is your selection tool, and I'm almost certain, I'm not 100% certain, that it uses the same tool. If I'm on a brush and I hold Control, it uses the same tool. So hopefully that helped. Not so much. It's darker there, darker than what I'm selecting. I'm gonna have to work it up myself. Oh no, I have to do it manually. Let's back up a little bit. That, that's what I fear most on myself, is a tendency for laziness here, right? A tendency to lean too heavily on the digital tools. And yeah, you may think, well, what's the problem with that? I mean, they're here. Well, if I'm out and about and I'm not in front of my big pen display and I don't have my iPad with me, and maybe I'm on a different program, maybe Krita dies, maybe, they shut Krita down and it doesn't update any further. Maybe I go to a different program. Maybe, what if this, and this? I can take the skills with me everywhere I go and use them in everything. But if I'm leaning heavily on digital programs, I'm learning the skills specific to that program, but not learning skills that transfer everywhere. I mean, skills that transfer everywhere, that are universal, are called principles. And this is what we want to learn, is principles. Because regardless if it's backlit from a monitor or it's reflected from the sun off of a tree, color will react similarly when you're painting. Scientifically, it reacts differently. But when you're painting, it's all hue, saturation, value. I'm going to gray that up a lot more. Speaking of principles, you want to take any color, but keep its value dark and make it look like a white. You just move it closer to gray. So that because this is a white that's in shadow, and what I pick out over here is more in this kind of orangey yellow space. And if I put this over here, it's going to look like an orangey yellow, right? And that's fine. Actually fill that in some places, darken it up. We need to get more of that texture in here, but I want to keep that same value, just as dark as that, but I want it to look like a white, because that white stripe and shadow. I'm just going to move it towards gray, really close to gray, probably all the way in gray. Now we're looking like a white. I could even go over into a blue. And there you go. It's more of a white. So Thinker says, I've been in a small plein air group. People, including, 3 people including me. One of the people is in hospice. My idea is saying goodbye to Harry. I have 2 paths coming from right and left that lead into each other. Harry is well along the path. After it has joined, the path leads to the right and the sun behind a hill on a mountain. Huh. There's a lot of narrative there. That's nice. I have to reread that again. Saying goodbye to Harry. I have 2 paths coming in from the right and left that lead into each other. Harry is well along the path after it has joined. The path leads to the right and the sun behind a hill or mountain. Oh, like off into the sunset. Yeah, there's multiple paths to get to where you are right now, but they all lead in the same direction. It's a good analogy for life, right? Like that. Let's think of different composition ways we can do that. You see where it's not easy? Like, as soon as you have this idea of composition. And hopefully you're using the thumbnails, or at least the design process document that I provided for you. Hopefully you're using that, because that's the best place where you can start adding in, quickly add in some small thumbnails, some small ideas. Small because you can adjust them quickly. You can iterate faster. I'm thinking while I'm talking of what else, like different ideas that I can help you out with on this. I'm thinking while I'm talking and drawing, which is a bad idea for me. Thomas Cole. That's who's coming to mind right now. Thomas Cole. Early 18th or 19th century, I can't remember, artist. He's got some amazing paintings hanging in the National Gallery of Washington. It's a triptych. Well, not a triptych. It's 3 different paintings. And he has it's a conversation on life, the journey of life. Now I want to actually see those. I need to bring it up in a browser. I'm sure it's Thomas Cole. And I'm not really... Oh yeah, there it is. The Voyage of Life by Thomas Cole. And I'll just... Yeah, there you go. These 4 images here. And instead of a path, he's using a river to kind of... Oh, that's prints on Amazon. No, thank you. Go away. I just want to see a bigger image. And there's 4 here. So youth. This is youth. And this is actually going to the nga.gov, National Gallery of Art, one of my most favorite galleries ever. It's very religious in nature, so if you're into that, you would like it. So, and the angel is always a part of it. Actually, when you look at this landscape, it reminds me a lot of stuff on ArtStation, which is really interesting. These kind of like vast landscapes, and not sure, like this is the kingdom of heaven, I'm sure, kind of out there. So the youth starts out, I think that's where it starts, is within youth. Let's see if we can back up and, oh, why can't I go back on this? I gotta close it. There it is. There's some other ones by... I want to get them in the right order, basically, works of art. Oh yeah, childhood. Okay, so you have childhood, youth, manhood, old age. So this is childhood. So little baby on the boat, there's the angel coming out of some kind of cave. You know, this is the beginning of the journey. Very fruitful, very interesting. Look at that landscape, how otherworldly it is. That's fantastic. Okay. Jeez, now I have to find it again. And then we go into the youth, which is awesome. We've seen that one. I'll open this one and this one in a new tab. And then this is manhood. So the angel has departed. It's up in the sky. Here's an older guy. He's on his boat. There's the trials and tribulations of life within the rocky waters moving forward. And he's praying, help me get through this kind of thing. Don't we all know that, right? And then at the end, we have calm waters. The old man sitting in the boat, looking forward to heaven, and the angel kind of beckoning, that kind of thing. Out to sea. Sea is the metaphor. Pretty interesting. So that's what came to mind, because I know that is, a narrative on the journey of life in 4 different paintings. Not saying that you have to do 4 different paintings, just saying that there could be something in there to spark, another path of creativity. Oh, you are using the thumbnail template. Perfect. Thanks for using that. Hopefully it's helpful. If it's not, let me know. If you're like, oh, you know what, this can be improved by this, that, and the other, that would be great too. Would love to improve it for others in some way. It's one of those things when you're working on a narrative, when you're working on a painting, that we are trying to say something, that it's coming from something closer to your heart normally. And it's hard to get input from others because you're painting your story. You're painting your experiences and your life in some way. And so the suggestions kind of fall flat in a lot of ways because, I'm speaking, of myself. They tend to not resonate as much because I feel like, at least for myself, I feel like, well, if I do what you say, it's not really coming from me as much, is it? 4 paintings? I have trouble coming up with 2 compositions for 1. You got it. You got this, man. You can do it. I know you can. We watched, this weekend, we watched a wonderful documentary on Sidney Poitier. Fantastic actor that has gone through, he died last year. Amazing life. Was, at the height of his acting career when we were going through, when America was going through a lot of, 1960s, early 1970s. And my brain just died. It's civil rights movement, yes. And so he was a big part of that. Especially as an actor, is really interesting. And so he was carrying a lot of weight from others, being this kind of model for Black citizens in America at that time, because he was a very powerful man on screen in a time when most of, if not all, Black people in movies were denigrated and played very subservient and unflattering roles. He refused to do that, rightly so. But one of the quotes that kind of stuck with me from that movie, and see if I can get this right, because he was talking with Oprah Winfrey, because Oprah Winfrey was going through some troubles. He said something like, it's impossible to carry other people's dreams on your shoulders. And, that's what we kind of run into a lot within life, especially as artists. We get so many ideas coming from every direction. Oh, you should do this, you should do that. That would be so cool. This would be so awesome. I would love that if it looked this way. And there's always this kind of pressure. Because being an artist, you want to sell your work. And I mean, heck, artists working today in industries, they do things that make them money. And it's usually never their ideas. So there's always this tendency to paint other people's dreams and other people's wants and needs. I would say take suggestions, listen, say thank you, and then paint what's true to your heart, what feels right to you. That's my suggestion. And then you're like, well, that doesn't really help me, Chris, with composition. I mean, I want a couple more compositions on this sheet because I only have one. Yeah, it's a struggle. It's hard. So let's come up with a couple more ideas. There are multiple paths that lead us down this ultimate road of life. If there are three things. One is sarcastic, and the other two are true to life, that it will happen with everyone, 100%. Number one, you will die. We all will die. And number two, your health will get worse with age. That is a fact of life. That is inescapable. But there's so many different paths that you can take to get there. I'm reminded of Robert Frost and his poem. I took the path less trodden, and it made all the difference in the world. That's the end of his poem, which is quoted most often. But it's kind of on the nose, isn't it? As they say in the movie industry, like I'm in the movie industry, so I've watched things about movies, but I'm not in the movie industry. It's a bit on the nose. Meaning, how can we make it more of an analogy than something so literal? Paths of life. I wish we had other people on the stream. If I had thousands of people on the stream, I bet you we would get like a ton of different ideas. Random, some probably crazy. Most you wouldn't want to do. But something that would spark another idea, another way to go about it that maybe you didn't think about before. Racking my brain here. I'm very quiet. You know what happens when I get quiet? I'm really thinking hard about something. Back to the tiger. Is the white under the eyes of a higher value than any other white on the tiger, or is it the fact that it's against the darkest dark? I would say, well, on a reference, it's going to be the same. It's going to be very similar. So if I select right here, a few of those selections, you can see it's, you know, bumping up pretty close to that value right there. You know, drag it over here on this white, pretty much the same. Up here, pretty much the same. Same all over, because we have this kind of, you know, where are the shadows in our reference here? Now, if I back out and I go to this reference, maybe some difference. Gets darker there versus here. You can kind of see a shadow here where the brow, this white at the brow is lighter, and then it darkens up here as the brow turns under. But with ours, we're gonna be pulling out, you know, values around here, this kind of hue and coloration, because we're doing, you know, a different kind of value structure. And if I throw that color down, that's pretty similar. Actually, it could be lighter on this side. Really feel like I need a stark difference. But this will look, regardless of how dark I make this, the illusion that it looks lighter is going to happen, because you're right, it's right next to some of the darkest darks in the painting. And I have no problem with that. I think that's good. I'm going to start moving a little bit faster now, zooming out, bigger brush. Going to make more mistakes this way. But going to fill up some of these areas a little bit faster. And I think I'm going to go with some of these mistakes too. Could be a change that we need in disguise. I feel like that a lot of this of what I'm doing is more of a block in. Not really a lot of refinement. I could probably go around and do a selection of all of these stripes and just either fill them in with black or do something similar to that, but I want the texture. More and more I'm understanding that I just love texture. Something that's ignored too often in art. Texture. Too dark. Yeah, I'm really enjoying how I've changed up this advanced color picker. I'm going to continually call it a color picker instead of a color selector. I need my other reference. There's something that I'm learning. When you bring in a reference to the pin tool, where you pin your reference inside of Krita, in my suggestion, it'd be better if you cut out only what you need, so that you can move it closer to what you're actually working on without the reference kind of going over what you're working on. Point of view. If something's difficult, break it down in most simple terms. That's this is directly from, well, somewhat similar to Marshall Vandross's perspective course. He says basically if you're dealing with really difficult perspective, get it out of perspective first. Flatten it, figure it out, and then put it back in perspective. And he demonstrates that, and it's like, you know, a revelation in perspective, honestly. But it's kind of like one of those things you could use within life as well. If it's very difficult, break it down into its smaller forms and then work it one little bit at a time. Now, I'm talking specifically about your composition thinker. Now, what do I mean by that? What if you, instead of thinking about the overall composition, you thought about one compositional element, and then you said, let's change this. For example, point of view, POV. From what I'm envisioning is you're looking at the back of the person. Harry. You're looking at the back of Harry. What if Harry was coming towards you? Completely different, like 180 on the composition. So what would that look like? Do that. There's a tendency when you do these kind of things, when you're doing the design process, where you say, well, that's not going to work. It's kind of like a lot of people when I talk to them about sleep and all of these other health things. I'm sure other people that are deep into some like health professionals, they'll tell, hey, you know, you should, has worked for millions of people. You should, well, that's not going to work for me. Oh, okay, fine. Yeah. The best thing to do, instead of just throwing it out the door right away on any of the suggestions, is to try it first. I don't think that will work for me, but I'll be scientific about it and do an experiment, because I might be wrong on this. You know, come at it always from a position of openness. You know, we could do that within life in a lot of ways. I don't like, can I erase that? No, I cannot erase that. That's underneath. Maybe it's this one. Oh wow, that's pretty far down on the tiger, isn't it? There we go. We have to hit both of them. I don't like this little tendril of hair coming out. So yeah, that would be my suggestion. Instead of thinking of the composition as a whole, take one element of just basic compositional design and figure out how you can change it 180, or, you know, maybe a little bit slightly. Maybe how can you pull it away from being so on the nose, so literal? I really don't know the answer to that. I'm going to be thinking about it though. Sounds like a good painting. I could do that painting. I could think about that painting and try how I would do it. That'd be kind of cool. Okay, made some progress today on our tiger. we're still, I feel like we're kind of in this ugly phase of it right now. Because honestly, you know, after doing all of the work that we've got up to till now on this tiger, we've gone through, you know, writing out our compositional ideas, doing some object drawing, thinking about different um, placements, going through all the different thumbnails, and then the compositional sketches, and then the color, figuring out our palette, our general palette, and then sketching out everything in detail. And then after that, working up the background within Paint, working at the foreground, and getting to this point, after taking all of that off the plate, we're still dealing with some things that, you know, or I'm still dealing with some things I've never dealt with before. Namely, you know, describing hair. You know, how to describe hair. It's not so easy. And as I'm looking at this, I'm not liking the placement of this stripe. It's making the shape of the head look too wide. So I think that's probably the biggest reason for the ugliness that I'm feeling in this painting right now is I'm still kind of playing around with, you know, these textures and figuring out stuff. The figuring out phase. What seems to happen to me all the time, and I know the reason why that is. It's because, you know, I'm doing so many different paintings all the time. I've done a lot of figures. There's not a lot of figuring out. Get it? Figuring out. There's not a lot of experimentation that goes on with figures in a lot of ways. Unless I put clothes on them. Then I have to deal with, you know, wrinkles and fabric and how that flows. Because I've done a lot of nude figures, or mostly nude figures. So there's always going to be that aspect, I believe, yeah. I want an orange that's dark, yet saturated. It looks good. Yeah. At least it's not cartoony. No, we're moving away from that, definitely. You know, it's like 90% of, you know, art is not the doing. It's the understanding. It's the seeing. That's really the whole game right there. The understanding. The seeing. We saw that it looked cartoony. Because of that, we could change it. That's 90% of the game right there. Just seeing what is wrong. Or what is good. Or what needs to change. Alright. There we are. An hour and 10 minutes on the stream. Keep thinking about that idea, thinker. I know you will. It's in your name. I'll keep tossing some ideas around in my head as well. See if I can come up with some stuff. Maybe get outside your comfort zone too. Do some searches on Google. Path of life. Look at digital art. Look at traditional art. Look everywhere. Get some ideas. Yeah. All right. Thanks everyone for showing up to the stream. Thank you, Thinker, for showing up all the time. Yeah, whatever you need, I will provide. Just let me know. And on that note, tomorrow's Tuesday. I'll see you tomorrow at the same time. I think the time that I have right now, 4:30 for me, 7:30 for you, has been working really well. So I'll see you tomorrow, 4:30 aka 7:30. Have a great rest of your day.